Greetings and welcome to another episode of Wealth Building Wednesdays, a platform for discussing an array of strategies for business growth in a variety of asset classes. I'm your host, Bomani Howze. Today we have a very special guest, Janai Smith of E.Holdings. Janai, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bomani, for having me today.
Great. All right, so we're going to dive right in. I want you to talk a bit about yourself and your company and what you got going on these days. Let's just start with a bit about yourself in the area of construction. Not a lot of women in construction, not a lot of African-American women in construction. So I was really excited to get you on the show and get your perspective and see what you have going on. Tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So, just a little bit about me personally. My husband and I are both from the Hill. We are excited to be part of the fabric of the community, looking at ways that we can change and make it a better place, whether that's in construction or design or development. So I think that's something that's important to us, something our parents, who are also from the Hill, instilled in us. And I think it speaks to the character of who we are and kind of why we're in the business of what we do. And so I think that's kind of fundamental to letting you know kind of who I am. I think as it relates to the construction or the design or the development, the built environment space, it's such a broad area that often we don't know about, right? So we know about being a landlord, we know about being a tenant at times, but we see these large developments or these construction companies and it seems like a world so many steps away. And so I really appreciate the opportunity through our family legacy to be able to be in those spaces. I'm energized by being in those spaces and kind of being the only one oftentimes there, and making a way or an avenue for others who are interested to kind of join us along the way. And I think that also speaks to kind of our role on the F&B project.
Okay. So E.Holdings, generational business, providing construction management service. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. So we like to say we connect people in place. And so that's two sides of a very similar coin. On the built environment side, that's where we do kind of construction management, construction services. So we also perform construction trades, but we also help owners in our construction management process understand the pre-development costs, the pre-construction costs, their estimating, scheduling, sequencing of services, value engineering, just kind of understanding and being a consultant or a support service for getting their construction jobs done. And that's really afforded us the opportunity to understand the construction life cycle and the process, to understand where people are often excluded in that process and to be creative about inclusionary ways to get them to be part of the process, and to make that kind of an additional service offering, for lack of a better way to say it, where we can be impactful and do something meaningful, and not just be the only ones, but make sure that we're always constantly looking back, seeing if there are others who want to chart a similar path, and being a resource for those who do want to do so.
So we have this huge project, the First National Bank Financial Center, being developed by Buccini Pollin Group and built by PJ Dick. Please tell us what it is that your services provides for a project of this scale. 26 stories, the first of many catalytic projects in the Lower Hill here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Tell us specifically what E.Holdings is doing in this phase of the construction.
Absolutely. So I think this kind of builds on what I was talking about legacy and generational businesses, and just kind of understanding that once you've learned a trade or you've learned a skill, that you make sure that those who are around you have the opportunity to build on what you've learned. And so what we were approached for to support the F&B Tower in particular is helping minority and women-owned businesses, one, understand that this process was happening, two, have an opportunity to participate and understand what it means to participate, understand what steps are needed to be taken, the barriers or the challenges, being open and honest about what those are, and trying to taking those barriers and obstacles and taking the enthusiasm or interest that the firms have and figuring out a middle ground in between so that participation was an option and that people were included and had the opportunity to participate in the construction trades on the project. Formerly called diversity coordination, but really just an opportunity to help those who have an interest figure out where they can fit into the process And if this is not the right process for them, figuring out how to get them prepared, because there are a lot of other developments happening on that site, so that when the next development comes along, they are now ready.
Right. So you've been very instrumental in making sure that if someone logs into the website, www.lowerhillredevelopment.com, I want to get involved, I have a company, what's next? What do I do?
Well, there are several steps. So I think you noted the first one, right? Letting us know that you're there, that you have an interest, what your interest is in, using the website form to do so. The second step is usually you receive a phone call from E.Holdings, kind of trying to get a better understanding of your business model. What do you do? What services do you offer now? At what level have you offered those services? And by no means are any of these questions meant to be exclusionary. So there's no wrong answer, but it's just to get a better understanding of where you are in your business life cycle so that we can try to pair you with the projects that are available. And then from there, should a project be available, we have a whole host of next steps, including information sessions, partnering with larger firms to let them better understand your capacity and skills to maybe participate on a part of a project. No one has to be able to come to the table doing the entire project solely by themselves, but we want to make sure that there's a way for you to participate, even if it's just a piece.
Right. So we're in October, end of October, going into November of 2021. We're in the first phase of the actual construction. So over the past 6 months, there's been a lot of capacity building and vetting and making sure that companies are made ready. So in June of this year, some packages went out for the tower. What did you find as some of the barriers to responding to the RFP and actually getting an award?
Well, I think we found a few things to be barriers. Some we were aware of going into the process and tried to mitigate as best possible. And others, we were made aware of through the process. I think the largest barrier for some of our small and emerging businesses who are looking to make that leap, kind of to take on a project that may be slightly larger than the last project, but would kind of continue to build on their capacity and their experience, is this access to capital. Do I have enough resources in my savings account to cover the cost of either materials or labor until the owner has time to pay me? And understanding the supply chain of how many, there's a construction manager and then there's a prime contractor and I'm a sub, how many folks get paid frankly in front of me before I receive my payment? And can I kind of sustain my business model and my cash flow until it's my turn? The second thing that we learned in significant fashion, which I don't think is necessarily unique to our minority and women-owned business, is workforce availability. Understanding that Pittsburgh is going through quite a construction boom at this time, and just making sure that there's available and qualified workforce to work on the site, and then to boot that they look like the folks who represent the community, and just being thoughtful and intentional about how they go about making sure that they have the workforce to complete work. And then that last kind of bucket of things are about kind of back of the house business services. So if I am successful, if I am awarded, understanding this is a new playing field for me. Maybe it's a little different than projects that I've done in the past. Maybe the reporting mechanisms are different, or the administrative expectations are a little bit more complex than I've experienced in the past, and just making sure that I feel comfortable bridging that gap, because people want to be successful in their business, and things that make them feel like anything can be a challenge can cause some hesitation. And so those are kind of the three top things that I would say that were immediate challenges that people posed that we heard, and we tried to identify kind of some mitigation measures to help with.
And so what are some of those mitigation measures? Access to capital, back of house. When you have these challenges, and especially for a project of this scale, where can you go? What can you do? Has there been any resources being provided to kind of help people get through and perform?
Well, I'll be frank with you. I think if all of these resources existed in a perfect scenario, then they probably wouldn't be our number one challenges. Mm-hmm. But I do think that there's been a concerted effort to systematically address some of the challenges. It's iterative. It's going to take time. I know that the URA and other organizations have created working capital funds that are made available and maybe even more specifically focused on small contractors who may have an interest in working on the Lower Hill site in particular, or an Avenues of Hope project. So I think that's a great vehicle. I would encourage those who express that as an interest to use that vehicle, because we can't perfect the model if no one uses it.
Right.
You can't figure out what about it doesn't make it work for you if you're not interested in using it. So that's kind of the first bucket of working capital. Is that probably enough to solve this gap that we're discussing? No. But again, we have to start using some of these vehicles in order to demand what is necessary to move forward. The second area that I think is really important in terms of back of the house is I have this great expectation that those who are as committed to seeing this development through will make those resources available, will identify consultants who can help contribute to assisting with doing certified payroll, who can provide accounting services, who can help folks, just on the front end, kind of work through that first payment application to make sure that it doesn't get kicked back, which causes another 30-day delayment in your payment. I know that PJ Dick and BPG are making tremendous efforts to try to work through and identify a workforce and make that information available to the contractors such that they're compliant with the requirements of the job. And I think that only time will tell in terms of how that works in comparison to the other projects that are happening.
So we have a suite of services that will be available for the awardees. And we're looking at our projections that just came back from PJ Dick, and the CSIP, the Community Collaborative Implementation Plan, had set goals for 30% MWBE and MBE and 15% WBE. And as of the reporting from this month, we are hitting our targets at 30% MBE, pardon me, and 6%. So we have some improvements to do on the women-owned business enterprises, but we're on target for hitting those numbers, and those numbers are exceeding the city goals, which are 15 and 7, if I'm correct. Is that correct? 15 and 7?
That is correct.
Okay.
18 and 7.
Yeah. And so back in March, we presented to the Equal Opportunity Review Commission, and we had a plan before. It was just a plan. We wanted to be able to say to the community, the larger regional stakeholders, that we have a plan in place and we're implementing that plan, and it is definitely an inclusive plan. And so we're looking forward to making sure that all of those awards are going to push forward and make sure that we're growing the capacity of other small firms. So next question. If a company is interested in getting on the Lower Hill site, we covered some of the first steps in the earlier part of the interview. I want to go back and look at the next phases of the project, future packages. What should folks be doing right now if they weren't a part of the first packages that came out in June of 2021? What should companies be doing right now to get involved in the Lower Hill project?
So I think there's a few things that they can do. If you have not made us aware of you as a firm, I think it's vitally important that you go to the www.lowerhillredevelopment.com site and fill in that form so that you can get on the radar. If you have made us available of who you are, I think a really important next step, particularly if you were not included in, or you chose not to bid on one of the current packages, is to reach out to E.Holdings or PJ Dick and kind of understand where you can, what capacity is needed for you to build in order for you to be competitive. Some of those things you may already know the answer to. Some of those things, maybe I want to increase my administrative capacity. I need to learn or understand better how I can get a performance bond, which I know that's going to be necessary for this project. Something maybe I need to better understand, if it is going to be a union requirement, what that is required of me, and getting a level of comfort about what that means, so that if I do choose to bid on the next one and the union requirement is part of that process, that I kind of understand and have more time to process what that means, what the implications are, what the requirements are, and I can kind of get comfortable with that information. So those are kind of three things immediately that I would think of. The next thing I would say is keep working, Because something that's really important in proving your capacity on a construction job in particular is to be able to deliver on what you said you would do. That's really important to the bonding agencies. That's really important to people evaluating capacity. And they don't have to be large jobs. They can be small jobs, but you need to be able to show a record of performance where I started a job, here was my scope of work, I completed it in a reasonable time and budget. And then my last thing I would say is seek out other opportunities. Right now, Pittsburgh is in a construction boom. And there are so many opportunities and people looking to partner because they do need to meet these requirements. And there are a lot of firms who are majority firms who are interested in developing partnerships with minority and women-owned businesses where they can be trusted partners. And that trusted partnership is a two-way street. And so by establishing those trusted partnerships, they can utilize your skills and abilities to perform what is required of them, understanding that they too may be having a workforce shortage. But at the same time, that partnership should also allow you to build your capacity to understand the mechanisms that make their company successful and be able to utilize or implement some of those in your own business model. And so those are some things that I would say to encourage you as you're getting ready for the next cycle of projects coming out of the Lower Hill site that would get you better positioned to be more competitive.
So see, this is why we had Janai on the show, because she's always providing substantive, detailed information as to how we can help small businesses grow and build their capacity and scale to be able to perform on these type of projects, such as the First National Bank Financial Center here in the Lower Hill. So I want to say thank you for making some time to, share with us your wisdom in the area of construction management and providing opportunities for MBEs, MWBEs to be able to get in these contracts. And so before we go, I want to have you just give some last words about E.Holdings, where people can get in contact with you, and then we'll close out.
Absolutely. So first, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to kind of share our small piece of wisdom about the process and what we hope to see our participation yield. How we hope to be meaningfully impactful for M and WBE businesses who are looking to grow and kind of get access to opportunities that maybe they felt like they didn't have access to in the past. E.Holdings, we do offer things outside of construction management. You can find out more about us, as our traditional plug, at www.eholdingsinc.com. That's a way for you to find out contact information for anyone on our team and to learn a little bit more about what we do and how perhaps we can be a resource to you in the future. So thank you.
And if you want to learn more about the project and stay up to date on the Lower Hill redevelopment, go to www.lowerhillredevelopment.com. And that ends our show for Wealth Building Wednesdays, the 4th edition, with the one and only Janai Smith of E.Holdings. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks again.